If you're a leader and your results have been going pretty well, but you're feeling like the number one thing that's stopping you from getting where you want to go is that staff are leaving and they want to work with other leaders rather than work with you. Because today I'm going to share with you 3 simple innovative things that you can do to have people queuing up to work in your team and to fast track your career. Now, in the past, to be a good leader, all you had to do was create a good vision and great team culture and share stories to help people get there. Now, those principles still stand today, but the team player today expects just so much more than just that. They want a leader who is innovative, visionary, understanding, helpful, teaches or shows or educates you how to do something. They're facilitative, they're challenging, they get results. They're not a slave driver. They're aware of work-life balance. They create projects worth doing. They know how to create employee engagement. They're focused and they create psychological safety, and they know how to create some fun. No wonder being a leader is hard work. Kudos to you for being one and wanting to get even better though. Now, if you're leading a team that wants to create business growth innovation, there are some fundamental skills that you really should get sorted. And there are also some new innovation in leadership techniques that really can catapult your leadership results if you learn them. Now, first up, some transparency. I am not a leadership guru, but I am an expert at helping innovation leaders becoming the best they can to get the results they deserve. Now, fortunately, I've worked with and mentored many of the world's best leadership experts from which I draw my tips today. Now, leaders have vision. That's the first up. If you want to lead, you've got to know where you want to go, which means being able to paint a vision of your future, the direction to your team. So some things that you might want to think about is, what does the future look like compared to where you are now? Some questions that might help with this is, what needs to change, stop or start to make it happen? What are the obstacles you'll need to overcome to get there? The reality is, when you share this vision, you've got to share it in multiple ways. It can be through stories, it could be through a BHAG or a goal or a target written down in a shared space or on a wall or a poster. And when you share your stories, they could be your own, or they could be stories of other people who also wanted to achieve a lofty goal and somehow had to overcome some hurdles to get there. Okay, so we've created a vision. The next thing that good leaders need to do is tell stories. Now, stories work, and they work because they help people bypass that critical judgment that happens in the brain, and they help people become emotionally attached to the journey and the outcome. Now, the reality is that when you're sharing a story, your people are thinking 2 things when you talk to them about considering doing any new behaviour or activity. 1, can I do it? Or 2, is it worth it? What's the benefit to me? And you need to keep these 2 things in mind when determining what story to share. And at the same time, you might also need to construct the story as effectively as possible. Now, to create a story that enables people to disconnect from their typical habitual activities, we'll call it anti-innovation, you want to ensure that your story addresses 3 things. 1, the situation, that is the time, place, who and why they should care. Second part is a complication, which might be a conflict or a crisis that comes up for the hero. That could be you or someone else, and this person, the hero, has to get through this complication despite it being uncomfortable. And finally, you need to have, number 3, a resolution. That's where something was eventually learnt, and in the aftermath, things have changed, and hopefully it's usually for the better. Okay, so that's the essence of stories. Now the other thing that modern leaders need to do is they need to be able to shift their communication style. Now, as a leader, you sometimes need to communicate one-on-one, or sometimes you need to communicate one-to-many. So one-to-one might be delivering a rousing keynote to your team. One-to-many. And you've got to share what the vision is and the journey you will take. While individually, you might put pen to paper and write your thoughts and share them with one person or via an email. There are also times that you need to train your team around a skill. You might go, we're going to learn this new skill, or individually you might need to show one person a shortcut, say for example, in mentoring. And that's sort of just showing them, here's the shortcut to make it happen. And finally, there's also the power of using questions to get people to that aha moment for themselves. This is really called facilitation when you're doing that in a group. So you might ask a question in a group saying, What are the biggest obstacles that we're likely to encounter in this project? So that way you're putting it to the group. While individually, you may act like a business coach and ask something like, if you were in the shoes of our biggest competitor, how do you think they would approach this problem? So you're trying to get them to shift to see the problem in a different perspective, but also to come up with the answers themselves. Another thing that leaders do very well is they know the difference between a trait and a behaviour. Mea culpa, I've been guilty of this before. I've done this when I've tried to ask my staff, step up to the plate and be more entrepreneurial, only to find out months later that there's been no entrepreneurial ideas. Why? Well, because being entrepreneurial is a trait. It's not a specific, observable or measurable behaviour. It might be a series of all of those things. What I should have asked was asked for a specific measurable behaviour that an entrepreneur would do. For example, what I want you to do in the next couple of weeks is identify an industry pain point for our customers that no company has adequately addressed. So that's measurable and understandable, while the trait, be entrepreneurial, is ambiguous and unmeasurable. So whatever behaviours that you want your team to start, continue, or to stop, you have to be able to identify what they are specifically so that you can actually measure them and inspire people to use them. Now, just remember, very different. Now, if you want a list of some specific innovation behaviours, you can find them in the Relaxed Leader's Guide to Getting Anyone to Innovate, which you can check out at my website, ideaswithlegs.com. Okay, some other things that leaders need to know in order to create business growth innovation is to know the drivers of change. And I reckon that there are 4 drivers of behavioural change. That is creating the want to, the chance to, the how to, and the prompt to. I'll kind of take you through those ones. So the first one, creating the want to. This is that you've got to be able to share stories or visions that create the motivation, desire, and need to do a behaviour. The second one, creating the chance to, is giving people the time, the space, and or permission to do the behaviours. And 3, creating the how to, is about sometimes teaching, the desired behaviour or skill. And finally, the 4th one, creating the prompt to, is knowing that every behaviour follows a prompt. And if we're not prompting our people, or if there aren't prompts set up, then the behaviour, until it comes subconscious and unconscious, isn't going to do. If you want to find out more about that, you really should check out, how to run a business growth innovation program. I've got a big article on that one and some videos, so check that out. Links are down below. Okay, I digress. Another good thing that leaders do nowadays is they catch people doing good things. Now, if your people are doing good things, you want to recognise them for it, and you want to tell other people about it as well. What this does is it reinforces the story, or fancy pants way of saying it, is the narrative that people have about what type of behaviours you're looking for to get them to the goal. Another thing that's really good is novelty awards work better than prize money. The reason why is, or at least when you're inspiring innovative thinking. There's a lot of research around that one. So what you might want to do is think of the most improved innovator award with a special rubber duck that they can put on their desk. Because the research really does show that encouragement with a novelty award or just recognition will encourage them more than just looking for some financial bonus. For other activities, it's different, but definitely for innovation, creative thinking, you want to make it around a novelty and recognition award. Okay, here's some important things now that's based around research. Leadership means different things to different people. And I can almost bet you $100 that knowing your team thinks what leadership means to them will be the same as what you think it means. So basically, leadership to each individual is unique and specific because each and every one of your team members has had different lives, different careers, and different leaders in their career. That means different experiences and different results. Now, this is not a bad thing, but it's essential to have a conversation around this so that people understand what leadership means to you and also your leadership approach. And probably the simplest and most effective activity that you can do is run a small session where people write down and then share to the group what leadership means to them. And then obviously you share yours as well. And what this will do is it will make people more receptive to your leadership style. It will also highlight your leadership blind spots that you might need to address. And it can also help you to engage with specific team members if you feel a drop in output engagement or communication, because they think leaders should be communicating in a different way. All right, what are some other things? Leaders create a safe and fun space. Now, I'm sure we've all heard of psychological safety, but how many of us actually create this for our team? The simplest example for psychological safety can be seen in a brainstorming session. Now, here's the thing you might not know. Above the fear of dying, the actual number one fear people have is public speaking. And it's no wonder then that when you ask the dreaded question, okay, has anyone got any ideas? You often get deafening silence because people do not feel safe. But if you get them to write their ideas down on a post-it note, then share them with the person next to them, and then get them to share with the people at the table, and finally you can share with the wider group, what you've done is you've created a much safer space and a place to share that people are interested in sharing their ideas. All because the person has shared several times already. They've shared to themselves, person next to them, shared with the table, shared with the group. It's amazing how much that works, and also works in cultures around the world. I've run that in places like in Japan, where people say, you'll never get people to talk, and they all open up. Okay, I should probably throw in some fun as well. Some of my clients have worked in some pretty hardcore places. Some are prison staff, police, military personnel. But you know what I found is that humour helps make these places easier to work in. So just think of how can you make your place and your workplace more fun to work in. Okay, so let's wrap this up. I've shared so many of those techniques with fledgling managers, and I've seen them transform to become real leaders in their own right, and their careers have blossomed. They used to be in a world where they were ignored, stressed out. They were struggling to convince themselves, let alone their staff, to be able to follow their vision. Now what they do is they create game-changing results with teams that love turning up to work, and they're inspired by the vision, support, and leadership that they can provide for their team. Now, if you'd like me to mentor you or your fellow leaders to create dream growth results via low-risk business innovation, I'd love to help you out. So check out our links to set up a meeting for me. So that's it for me. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe or give us a like, whatever you can do. And I'd love to know your leadership innovation tips. Please DM me or email me with your techniques or your stories if you have any. And I'll see you soon. Cheers. Bye.